Welcome back to the channel, fellow aviators. I am currently sitting out in Riverside again, where I took the check ride. I have already accepted a mission, and we're just about ready to get going. I had a subscriber ask if I could cover a little bit more in depth about VOR navigation, and so that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take a very short flight over to Los Alamitos. We're going to do some VOR navigation and finish it off with a VOR approach. But before we get started, as always, the shameless plug, please leave a like, subscribe, comment, share. I truly appreciate all your help. And also, I don't really talk about it a lot, but you'll see it down in the description. I do have a brand new Discord that I put out. Love to have you come over and join. Just a place to share your screenshots, your sim rigs, your not safe for work memes, ask questions, talk a little smack. Very friendly group over here. Anyways, love to have you join. All right, so let's talk about exactly what we're going to do. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to do. As you can see, we're located up in Riverside. We are then going to fly out on a heading of 240. We're going to need to intercept that 224 radial to the Paradise VOR, or I might just go direct. One thing to know about VORs is the closer you get to them, the more sensitive they are. So that's going to be very, very tight. Normally what you'd want to do is the traditional intercept angle is 45 degrees. So 224 minus 45, that should put us on a heading of about 180 right after we take off. But theoretically, I would like to go out on the, or into the Paradise VOR on the 224 radial. Once we cross the Paradise VOR, we will then go outbound 260 for about 13 miles until we get to the Prado intersection, which is the initial approach fix for the Los Alamitos 22 left VOR approach. Now, in reality, I actually couldn't shoot this approach because this is a VOR DME approach, so it assumes you need to have a DME, and of course in the 152, we don't. But I think we should still be able to get this done. I would like to show you how to find your position by cross-referencing two VORs, and we can do that at the Prado intersection by being on the 260 radial. And if we look just to the north, we can see the Pomona VOR. Once we intercept those two radials, that would show us exactly where Prado is. The only issue is I only have the two VORs, and I will only have, as you see, a cell is the next fix. I have 4 miles, and then I would have to swap over VOR. So we're not going super fast in the 152, obviously. So I might have time to get that done. I would definitely like to show you. So it's just going to involve a lot of radio switching really, really quickly. So I just want to give you a heads up. And then you can see we'll just fly the 217 radial all the way into Los Alamitos. And if we come over here, we can look at the actual approach chart. And then you see over just on the left there, Prado is the initial approach fix. We're going to be about 3,000 feet or so. Once we intercept the 260 or we intercept the 217 radial inbound to Los Alamitos, then we will fly that all the way in. And we'll descend from about 9 miles, descend from about 3,000 feet or so. But you can see all these fixes here. The next one's, you see a cell, the initial approach fix is at 12.9, DME, REMS is 10.0, Crust 6.0, Let V 2.7, and OIAVE at 1.7, which is probably our missed approach fix, which it is, as we look down at the horizontal view. But we know once we get to approximately 3,000 feet, if we come down roughly 6,000 feet per minute, starting at Crust when we're about 6 miles out, that should keep us kind of right on profile till we get down at the very bottom. If you, once again, I think I've posted this before, I'll leave a note, a little card that you can click on, how to read an approach plate. It is for an ILS, but whether it's an ILS, an RNAV, or a VOR, all the elements are the same. And so once you kind of understand what the elements are telling you, chart reading becomes very, very easy. Okay, so let me just hop in the aircraft, save some time, and I will meet you on the runway and show you what I've done to prep the aircraft to make this flight as successful as possible. All right, See you in a few seconds. Okay, I'm sitting on runway 24. So we're planning on going straight out. In the top nav selection, I have selected the Paradise VOR, which is 112.20. That is in there. And then I have turned the OBS, which stands for Omni Bearing Selector, to a heading of 224, which was the inbound that we wanted to fly roughly to get to the Paradise VOR. You see the CDI. I don't want to overwhelm you with acronyms. We'll just do it right now. The CDI, which stands for Course Deviation Indicator, is showing just to the left. So when you fly a VOR, you got to be, and I'm going to demonstrate this later. For the most part, you're always just going to turn in the direction of the needle. What I would like to demonstrate is reverse sensing when that's not the case. But if you do everything correctly, you should fly towards the needle. So make a left-hand turn, and that makes sense to us, right? Because we know the VOR is located south-southwest of us. You also see in the VOR indicator, right, that there's a little arrow pointing to the VOR. All right, so this is where it becomes difficult, and I'll demonstrate this in flight, but to and from, we just want to make sure that where we're heading, the direction we're heading, matches up. But we'll discuss that a little bit later. I've also down in the secondary nav source, the bottom one, I've selected the Pomona VOR, which is 110.4, and I've already dialed in a course of about 168 or 170, which would give us the intercept point, which shows exactly where Prado is. In the real world, you would obviously not be picking these up on the ground, right? The signal comes out kind of like in an inverted cone, and so we would definitely not be picking up Pomona always sitting here on the ground. I dialed in Seal Beach just to see if it would work on the ground here, and it's not. So either it's somewhat modeled, or once we get to the Seal Beach VOR, it's not going to be there. So I guess we're going to find out, see how well Microsoft Flight Simulator has this modeled out. All right, so that's what we've done to get the aircraft prepped. We're sitting on the runway, and now it's just a matter of us taking off and getting going. So let's drop the brake and go ahead and climb out. All right.
Transporter, good flight.
Thank you very much. All right, so we're going to be looking for about 3,000 feet or so. Hopefully the weather cooperates with us. And as we turn out, would we say we want a heading of about 180? So let's go ahead and start our left-hand turn. To get on our intercept. And then we're just going to watch that needle as it starts to come in. Then we will go outbound 224. All right, so you see the needles slowly starting to come in. Each of those deviations is a 2-degree deflection. So we don't know how many miles, of course, we are off course. But here we'll go ahead and turn in, try to keep that centered up. And now I'm looking for a heading roughly of 224. There's 220, 224, right about there. And now we're just going to want to track that needle. So if the needle goes to the right, we go to the right. Obviously, without making things overly complicated, if there was a lot of wind, you'd have to put in a wind correction angle, but let's, hopefully for the sake of this argument, we won't need that. So what you're looking for, if you see them on the ground, and when I was flying in, I think one of the very first flights, I forget where we went, when I did that initial VOR, it should look like actually just a really large bowling pin, but it was completely flat on the ground, so it wasn't modeled correctly. All right, so actually I've overcorrected here, so let's get back to more like 220. There you go. It's actually over at 230. All right, 2,000 climbing 3. All right, so I'm on a course of about 224. The VOR is pointed at 224, so we are looking good. Now, what we should expect to see, once again, as you get a little bit closer, is the needle will be a little bit more sensitive, and then there are times where you just kind of, as you get within a mile or two, you're just going to have to ignore the signals coming from the VOR because it is so sensitive. And then as we pass over the top of it, what you're going to see is that the to from arrow will switch. All right, 25 for 3,000. Just kind of looking out, see if they've modeled it. We can if we wanted to. I guess we could bring up our EFB. Yeah, it's not really showing there. So we see that large lake up there, about 1 o'clock. That's roughly right in the middle there, kind of straight ahead. Should be the VOR. So we are getting a little bit closer. If we did have DME, which stands for Distance Measuring Equipment, it measures the distance from ourselves to the VOR. But it doesn't know, because it's a dumb system, it doesn't know our altitude. Right? So if you're at 10,000 feet and you pass over the top of a VOR, it's going to show you coming out at about 2 miles. So just something to keep in mind if you actually have an aircraft that's equipped with DME. So depending on how your altitude is and how high you are will determine. See, now we're starting to, as you're starting to see here, now I'm making very, very small changes. I'm on a heading of 230. It's already showing I need to keep coming to the right. So I think we are getting very close to the VOR. I'm just looking here to see if I can see it on the ground. They're actually fairly, at 3,000 feet, you would definitely be able to see them. All right, so there you go. See the needle's really starting to move now, even though we're really not doing anything. That's not you making a mistake. That is we're just now getting over the top of the VOR. And now we should see the to from arrow. It should flip. And that will tell us when we pass directly over the top of the VOR. All right, there it is. It just flipped. So we just passed over the top of the VOR. So what did we say we wanted to do? We wanted to go out on a 260 radial. And now we will turn to a heading of 260. Now, of course, I'm on 270, so let's take a correction angle because obviously we were busy yippity-yapping and passed directly over it. So we'll come to the right just a little bit. There we go. See the needle starting to come back in. And we're way off here. So just kind of All right, so now we've established ourselves. I'm really busy talking, haven't really turned off the aircraft that well. So we are on a heading to 270. We should be, or the radial should be 260, and minus any wind correction. There we go, starting to come back in. Now let's put ourselves back on 260. And then obviously the further we get away from the VOR, the less sensitive. All right, so I did want to demonstrate one thing. So you see here, I'm going to come to the left. So we've definitely come left or south of our course. And do you see how the needle's moving towards the right? It's telling us we need to come back to the north. And I want you to sometimes think about the direction, not necessarily, I say left, but really it's north. And I'm going to show you exactly why this is important in just a second. So we'll get ourselves back on course. And then I'm going to show you what's called reverse sensing. And this is one of the more potentially, in the real world, dangerous things if you don't understand what's going on, because the reverse sensing is going to give us the reverse of what we expect. All right, so we're basically back on course off about half a degree. And now I'm going to turn the OBS to give us the complete reciprocal of 260. Right about there. Very hard to fine tune this. And let's do the exact same thing. We're now going to turn to the left. And now watch what happens to the needle. Come off here about 30 degrees. And now do you see how the needle is moving towards the left? And so you've, excuse me, you've always been trained to think, oh, I got to follow the needle. So you go to the left a little bit more. And now it comes out, it starts deviating even more than what you expect. And you can very quickly get yourself kind of lost and discombobulated. Excuse me, sorry. So the key is the direction you're traveling. That's where you want to have the OBS set up. Let's once again put ourselves back on a heading of 260. So that's probably one of the biggest dangers when you're flying the VOR, that you're kind of mismatched in terms of where you need to go. So I am now south of course. And that's why, remember, I told you think more about direction as opposed to I'm right of course, I'm left of course. All right, so we really don't have that far to go. So I'm going to fairly an aggressive angle here to get ourselves back on course. Okay, and so as we mentioned in the number 2 radial, or nav radio, I have selected the Pomona VOR and a 168 from the radial from Pomona, and that should give us that initial fix of Prado. So let's get ourselves back on course again. Try to make a standard rate turn here, which is about 20 degrees or so. So we're theoretically doing some instrument flying here. Quite. right, so the next thing we're going to want to do is get ourselves prepped for the next, which will be Seal Beach, which is 115.7. So I'll put that in the standby. So once we get to Prado intersection, I'm going to swap the VOR and we'll try to tune in Seal Beach. Hopefully it exists. While I'm doing this, try to be multifunctional here. Pull up our nav charts. Search KSLI. It's nice. Totally controls locked up there for a second. Sorry about the jump. We'll just bring that up. Approach. Wow, every time I'm bringing the chart up, it's not approach. Two left. Hide. All right. All right, so I think we did that just in time as we see our bottom nav source is starting to come in. So now we are over Prado intersection. We can actually start heading down to, I think, about 2,700 feet. A lot of work. All right, so got about 4 miles to go. So once again, we're just going to kind of hold this heading here. We'll type in 115. Yes, there we go. And now we're going to put in 2. That's 210. And then that should turn us in on our 217 radial, which would be a cell. As I was busy yippity-yapping and talking, I went right past a cell. About another 10 degrees or so. Once again, this would be a lot easier if we had DME, so I could figure out when exactly I need to descend. But we're just going to kind of keep on coming down here or so. So that should be heading to about 217. and we should be looking for a runway here about, I don't know, 8-9 miles out. Which I still have not picked up. All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed the overall kind of tutorial on how to do some VOR work, a VOR approach. Once again, it's a little bit more difficult here not having the DME, so I can't figure out exactly how far out I am. If you guys are wondering, I did attempt to take the check ride again, actually twice, and I was still not able to get 3 stars. I think I landed at like 60 feet per minute, and the highly competitive nature of me wanted to continue there till the end of time, until I got my 3 stars. But I finally decided I'm going to have to move on. So. Other than that, it's been a very quiet week at work. And as I think I've told most of you all, I am an airline pilot and I work the reserved schedule. And they managed to not call me all week. So while I love flying, I love getting paid not to work even more. So I think we got the runway out there about 11:30 or so. I think I see the red pappies. But if you guys want to practice this stuff, highly advise, just especially if you have an aircraft that can actually legally do this approach. What I mean by that with the DME, go ahead and just set your weather conditions down as low as you can, or like right at minimum, so you can pop right out and see if you've done it correctly. That way there's no cheating. So you see we're right on kind of course right here. Looks like we're just a little bit south of the runway. And that is not uncommon where you might find yourself, when our busy yippee yapping here, when our first notch of flaps. A lot of these are slightly offset. That's why this is the localizers, especially VOR, it's considered a non-precision approach. The minimums are going to be much, much higher than if you were flying a precision approach like an ILS. Notches out. Our speed's looking good, about 75 knots. And we're just going to keep trying to fly the VOR, keep the VOR as possible. And the missed approach here was about 500 feet. to leave. Not gonna lie, the very first time I did this for real, flying out of Torrance Airport, I think I went up to Santa Barbara and then came back down at night. And it turned out the weather really deteriorated while I was up in Santa Barbara having dinner. And so came back actual IFR the whole way, broke out just above minimums. And it definitely feels like magic when you pop out for the very first time doing this. All right, second notch of flaps, a little bit high, but we have a super, super long runway. Those, of course, wants to balloon up a little bit. And now we're just going to hold about 70 knots or so. So, all right, just let me know down in the comments if you want me to continue flying the Cessna, the 152, or if you want me to start moving up. I mean, I have the 172. I've just been taking this more as kind of a free to play, and also the ability to do episodes like this where we can do a little bit of tutorial, a little instruction, help you all make you better pilots. Too high. Bring it down. There we go.
Nice landing, pilot. Taxi to parking and shut down your engine.
All right, guys. Well, obviously, this is a actual mission. I'll get some money and some experience points, but that wasn't really the point here. So, once again, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If there's more questions, look, there's a lot more involved. There's different types of VORs. There's a lot more that we could talk about. But I think, when I made this for you guys, it was really just to kind of give you a practicality in terms of how to actually do some of the work without getting bogged down too much in some of the minutia. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed it. I think I'll let you off here, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care for now.